Today I will show you the easiest way I know of making 3D skyboxes, covering how to align it in mere seconds and how to scale down the models as well. The whole process will only take about 5 to 6 minutes, but explaining how to do it takes way longer. All you need is Hammer++, which is shipped with proper ++. You could also modify the skyboxes in Blender, but that's way too advanced and out of the scope for this guide. Before I start though, here's a dump of info that you should know. First, the skybox brush of the playable area must not intersect the floor, else you'll get gaps. You should build the skybox around the brushes instead. Second, lights and shadows of the playable area will not spill into the skybox, but skybox shadows will creep into the playable area. Third, skyboxes always render behind the playable map. Avoid having skybox brushes or objects reach into the playable area, else it'll look very strange. Fourth, some branches of the source engine allow you to scale down dynamic props by the use of a key value. Those branches being Source 2013, Alien Swarm, and Garry's Mod. The games that don't support this will make use of proper instead. But animated models must be scaled down by recompiling them, because proper can't do animations, at least not yet. But you also need proper to scale down small brushwork and maybe displacements. Cause if you have brushes that will end up being less than 1 unit thick, it can break in compiling. Tiny displacements might compile right, but they probably won't load properly or at all the next time you run Hammer. So, let's start with the Prerequitise Setup. We gotta edit the game info to accommodate proper ++. Proper always puts its QC, SMD, and materials into the first search path of the game info. Add a new search path at the very top and call it Game Map Source. And below that you should make another one where finished models and materials for your map will be copied into. You can also turn that into the actual add-on later on. And as you can see, you can also add a subfolder into the game info file. Just keep stuff more clean. Now in Hammer, you can put your entire playable map into one shared Vvis group. Anything you add now will not be added into the Vvis group, so you can hide the map and all that's left is your future skybox. Avoid using the dupe shortcut though, because that will copy the Vvis group's data of that as well, which will end up with you hiding the stuff. With all that out of the way, you can now start adding brushes and props around your playable map. Pause the video and come back when you're ready to continue. Copy the master fog controller and turn it into a sky camera. This will copy the fog settings into your skybox. Make sure there is no Vvis group data, then move it to the world origin. My sky camera has a different model, ignore that. Hide the Vvis group that contains the whole playable map. All that's visible now is the stuff that you made for the skybox. Create a very large no-draw box that covers every single thing left in your map. The center of this brush must also be directly on the world's origin, else the alignment will be off and everything will be for nothing. This brush will be used to center all models once we scale it down through proper. Turn on texture lock to scale the textures down properly. Then, move everything down so it's out of the way. First, we scale down all the props. If your branch allows model scaling by key value, turn the props into Prop Dynamic Override. Then set the model scale key value to your scale factor. Just divide 1 by your sky camera scale value. That result is the number you need. If you can't use that key value, you need proper to scale down models. But before we get to proper, a quick intermission about scaling down animated models. Unpack the model from the game and decompile it with Crowbar. You'll get the QC file in which you can enter the scale command followed by that same multiplier value, 0.0625. Edit the model name line to be a custom name. I'd recommend swapping the folder name for your map name. Then drag the QC onto Crowbar and pick the custom content folder as the output location and then compile the model. You can copy the model name string from the QC and replace the animated model that you placed into your map. This avoids rebooting Hammer because the model browser cannot find new models until you reboot. If you want to use proper, you must always have at least 2 models. If you only have one model, you can copy the prop entity and clear its model string and then use both of them together. Now copy that big Nodra box. We will paste it in place and reuse it later. Now select 2 or more models or small brushes, then select the big Nodra box and group them together. Head over to Tools and then Proper. On the top you have the model path and name you want to give the model. Every subsequent model needs a different name, unless you tick the Add Incremental Suffix checkbox. But if you recompile the same objects with that box ticked, you get tons of models. For source file directory, use $VMF. For material path, use models/$VMF. Leave the physics box empty. In the scale box, enter the same scale factor I mentioned earlier, 0.0625, or whatever you have. Down here, tick everything but wait for key press. Click the Build and Compile button. After a short moment, your selected models or brushes will be recompiled at a smaller scale. You will also get a Vis group called Proper. That contains the original models and brushes, so you can change stuff and try again if you need to. If you have more stuff to turn into a prop, paste the Nodra box using Paste Special so it's still in the same place, and then rinse and repeat, grouping models or brushes with the big Nodra box, and then run them through Proper until you are done. Now with the models and the problematic brushes compiled, we can scale the rest of the skybox down. Hide all the models you ran through Proper for now, but keep all the models that you scaled down with the key value or the ones you recompiled to be small, like this helicopter. Paste that big Nodra box in place once more and then select everything you still have. Right-click the selection in the 2D viewport and pick Transform. Pick the Scale option and enter the same scale multiplier value as before. Now you can unhide everything to see if it all went well. Turn the Nodra box into a hollow skybox volume. You might need to disable shadows on the props or set a light origin, but you'll find out once you're in-game. Since I'm using a displacement in the skybox, I'm also adding a Func detail blocker to prevent grass sprites from spawning in the skybox. And at last, enable the Playable Map Vis group and compile the map. The only thing we gotta do now is collect all our stuff. Head over to the game's Models folder, find that folder that has your models, and move it to your Custom Content folder. Next, you gotta head to the Map Source folder and get the Materials folder from there. And now you're done. Now you know the basics of making a skybox. Don't forget to like this video if you learned something and subscribe if you want to learn more. If you need help with this or modding in general, join the Dead for Mods Discord server. There's dedicated channels for mapping and modding in which you can ask your questions. I also have a personal Discord, but you're less likely to get help there. There is also a link in the description through which you can support me further if you'd like to. But now this video has been way longer than I had anticipated, so see you guys next time, take care, bye.